camera of anybody, a body cam that says, "Show me your birth certificate." This is how fake news happens.
Ben, have you seen evidence of ICE asking people to
for
show
documentation
evidence of their
documentation? Yes.
For documentation of their citizenship of where they were born. Have you
If
seen
you
it?
don't
It's a
have
yes or no.
papers,
It's a yes or no
that's
question.
a normal thing to ask for documentation. Here it is.
Have you seen it? Have you seen it? Have you
This
seen it?
is not.
Have you seen it?
I've not seen it. I've not seen it. I go back to what you said. I haven't seen a single ICE agent go, "Give me your birth certificate." Because what you said was,
hold on a second.
You have to now in America walk around with your birth certificate. That's what you said.
Last question.
I didn't use that example.
Last question for you, Ben. When you go out for a walk or a jog, you carrying your birth certificate or your passport with you?
In today's video, Abby Phillip shuts down Ben Ferguson on Newsnight with Abby Phillip as a heated immigration debate erupts over ICE, accountability, and constitutional rights. Abby Phillip challenges Ben Ferguson on the real-world impact of enforcement tactics and the lack of oversight, while Ben Ferguson avoids a direct answer to one key question. The exchange quickly turns into a sharp clash over facts, fear, and political spin. So let's dive in and watch how Abby Phillip shuts down Ben Ferguson on Newsnight with Abby Phillip.
Right, as Democrats weigh how to best respond to the growing unpopularity of President Trump's immigration crackdown, one of the party's newest faces isn't holding back.
I am in support of abolishing ICE. We're seeing a government agency that is supposed to be enforcing some kind of immigration law, but instead what it's doing is terrorizing people, no matter their immigration status, no matter the facts of the law, no matter the facts of the case. And I'm tired of waking up every day and seeing a new image of someone being dragged out of a car, dragged out of their home, dragged out of their life. What we need to see is humanity. And there is a way to care about immigration in this city and in this country with a sense of humanity. What we're seeing from ICE is not it, and we have not seen that from them in a long.
Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry is taking a different approach to that question. Here's what he said.
Do you support abolishing ICE?
I do not support abolishing ICE. However, I absolutely oppose the way that this administration is conducting themselves with us. We want to keep this city safe. This is not accomplishing it by any standard.
So there are a couple of issues here. I mean, obviously, Dr. West, there's the rhetorical question of should it be abolish ICE or should it be something else? But then there's the question that Kristen brought up, which is just because what Trump is doing is unpopular doesn't mean that Democrats are trusted on the issue. How do they find a way to actually have a message on immigration? And should that message be abolish ICE in your view?
Well, I mean, I ran the presidential candidacy based on abolishing ICE and poverty and a lot of other things. And my argument was that if you don't have strong mechanisms of accountability to make sure that people are being treated humanely as human beings and as citizens, then you don't need to have that particular institution. And there's an intimate relation between raw imperialism abroad with no regard for international law or human rights and escalating raw fascism at home with private armies and secret police with no accountability whatsoever. Nobody goes in and treats people the way they do unless they feel that they have immunity, unless they feel that they can get away with it. And in history, black folk really lays that out. Slavery, Jim Crow, police brutality in black community. What?
Would you get rid of police too, though?
Never. Not at all. I want accountability.
Then you're different than Mandani, so that's good.
Well, no, but I tell you about Brother Soran. I tell him this. He's got a police commissioner who not only was a little bit too open to stop and frisk, and many of us went to jail for that, but she also has the role of providing surveillance and data to ICE. So you can't, on the one hand, appear as if you're a sanctuary city and then have a police commissioner
who provides Elliot's view on this, because Elliot has also, I mean, you understand this agency well. I think that what ICE has been doing, how they have been transformed now, has made the agency actually very different. I mean,
of course,
doing traffic stops, just sort of stopping people on the street and forcing them to show their papers is not what ICE was doing 5 years ago.
When people frame immigration enforcement as just law and order, they skip over documented civil rights concerns that have been building for years. Federal watchdog reports have repeatedly flagged overcrowded detention facilities, inadequate medical care, and due process violations in immigration custody, Courts have ruled multiple times that US citizens and legal residents were mistakenly detained because of database errors and rushed operations. That's not a branding problem, that's a systems failure. When an agency operates with that many errors, trust doesn't erode, it collapses. Economically, mass detention and rapid deportation sweeps are wildly expensive and don't line up with crime data. Studies consistently show immigrants, including undocumented immigrants, commit crimes at lower rates than native-born citizens. Meanwhile, immigration courts face backlogs in the millions, meaning people wait years for hearings while families and employers sit in limbo. Local police chiefs have testified that when immigrant communities fear federal raids, victims and witnesses stop cooperating, which makes neighborhoods less safe. That trade-off rarely gets acknowledged in talking points. Historically, expanding enforcement power without oversight has led to abuses that later required public apologies and court settlements, from unlawful surveillance to racial profiling. The US already has labor shortages in agriculture, caregiving, and construction that economists tie partly to restrictive immigration pathways, so a purely punitive model ignores market reality. Other democracies pair border enforcement with legal channels, work permits, and inspectors to prevent misconduct. The debate isn't about open borders versus chaos, it's about whether policy matches constitutional protections and dignity.
A couple things. Now, the brand of the agency is largely toxic now, and just by way of comparison, in 2018, the top customs enforcement officials at ICE, many of them, remember, it's immigration and customs enforcement, literally wrote a letter to the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security asking to be broken off as a separate agency just because they didn't want to be associated with the immigration side of the House because of how politically polarizing and toxic and problematic it is. But I want to pick up on one thing that Professor West had said. It's not, because you used the word accountability, and what's missing here, and certainly what we had through my 4 years there from both Democratic and Republican Congresses, was a Congress that was willing to look critically at the things that ICE and the rest of DHS was doing. Congress isn't doing that now. There's a very rare issue. The Epstein files seem to be the one thing where Congress has really sort of held the administration's feet to the fire, but there really are not critical questioning or hearings or anything from.
But here's the thing that I think is that it's important. ICE is not having to do what you're watching in Minneapolis, for example, and other cities that cooperate with ICE and work with them on detainers for illegal immigrants that are in jail who have committed crimes. If you don't want this type of, as you described it, chaos or anarchy or law enforcement that worries you, there's a real easy way to fix it. There's about, 200-300 cities in America that cooperate with ICE. And you don't have any of this there.
So
you don't have any of it there.
But you also don't have 2,000 ICE or Border Patrol officials anywhere else in the nation other than in Minneapolis.
You didn't have the
and on top of that, hold on a second, there were sanctuary cities under Biden, under Obama, under Trump 1. We did not see this happening. And to add to that, look, ICE raids, controversial, always have been, always will be.
Not really.
I think
when Obama was doing it, it wasn't controversial.
Certainly,
you guys did right along.
Yes, I did. I raised
Hold on.
There was tape of CNN celebrating it, talking about how brave they were.
I had a critique, a strong critique, though, brother.
Hold on a second.
Okay, but that's
there was a lot of controversy around Trump, around Obama's ICE raids. But here's the thing that really seems to be getting to Minneapolis residents, but also people like, this is former Congressman Justin Amash.
What Elliot Williams and Abby Phillip are pushing toward is a rule of law argument, not a vibes argument. Federal courts have already ruled that parts of past immigration enforcement practices violated constitutional protections, especially around prolonged detention without proper hearings. The Fifth Amendment applies to persons, not just citizens, which means due process isn't optional based on paperwork status. When enforcement starts looking like Broad Street level dragnets instead of targeted operations, legal risk for the government skyrockets, and taxpayers end up footing the bill through settlements and lawsuits. There's also the public safety angle people gloss over. Major city police departments have repeatedly said community trust drops when residents fear any interaction with law enforcement could turn into an immigration issue. That leads to fewer crime reports, fewer witnesses, and harder investigations. Meanwhile, immigration courts are drowning in backlogs that stretch years. So aggressive arrests don't equal swift justice. They create legal limbo. Even conservative-leaning economists have noted that mass removals disrupt local labor markets in construction, food supply chains, and caregiving, which hits prices and small businesses. Oversight is the quiet part that matters most. DHS watchdog reports have flagged medical neglect, poor record keeping, and contractor abuse inside detention systems across administrations. When Congress isn't actively holding hearings or demanding transparency, internal problems fester. Other democratic countries separate border control, asylum processing, and interior enforcement with clearer guardrails and civilian review systems. That structure reduces misconduct claims and improves compliance. The real debate isn't enforce or don't enforce. It's whether enforcement operates inside constitutional boundaries with accountability that the public can actually see.
Former Republican congressman, he says, abolish ICE. What we've seen recently isn't immigration enforcement, it's state-sponsored terrorism. They should not exist. They're using the context of immigration as a pretext to sidestep constitutional limits, warrants due process transparency that protect us all from government abuses. It is the masks. It is the random stops. It is the where are your papers? We're going to hold you until we're able to use facial recognition technology to determine whether you're a citizen or not. Those are the things that people like Amash, a libertarian, a constitutionalist type of person, is deeply uncomfortable with, and a lot of Americans might be as well.
I think that one's a flawed example, with all due respect to former congressman. He's looking for a way to be relevant. He's using this to do it. I think you both said some really great.
Possible?
So you made a really great point early, and so did
on
you.
principle,
that ICE looks a lot
ICE
different than it did 5 years ago, and thank God it does, because 5 years ago we had a huge immigration crisis in this country where people were flowing
millions flooding in
over the border. So I'm so happy ICE looks different than it did 5 years ago, because it wasn't working.
So you're comfortable with ICE officers walking around masked and stopping?
To your point.
Okay.
The mask is,
hold on.
No.
All right. So we got that answer. Masks.
When it comes to safety,
inquiring about citizens.
I agree with
passports,
President
and
Trump.
What are we
there
supposed to travel with our birth certificates now? What's the deal?
I haven't seen that implemented anywhere, but I do agree with the president that there are situations.
I've seen it.
I didn't bring my birth certificate.
We've all seen it.
Hold on, you've done a ride along where they're saying, show me your birth certificate? This is breaking news.
Who at this table has seen ICE or border officials asking people
for documentation,
to show documentation of citizenship or where they were born?
Hold on. Do we have a single do we have a single camera of anybody, a body cam that says, show me your birth certificate? This is how fake news happens.
Ben, have you seen evidence of ICE asking people to
for
show
documentation
of their
documentation? Yes.
For documentation of their citizenship, of where they were born. Have you seen it?
If you don't have
yes
papers,
it's a yes or no
that's
question.
That's a normal thing to ask for documentation. Here it is.
Have you seen it? Have you seen it?
This is not.
Have you seen it?
I've not seen it. I've not seen it. I go back to what you said. I haven't seen a single ICE agent go, give me your birth certificate. Because what you said was,
hold on a second.
You have to now in America walk around with your birth certificate. That's what you said.
Last question.
I didn't use that example.
Last question for you, Ben. When you go out for a walk or a jog, you carrying your birth certificate or your passport with you?
I carry my license, which is a form of documentation, because I'm an American citizen, so I have that.
Oh, hold on, but guess what?
This is not scary. When I flew, I had to get this out and go, here it is. I'm an American citizen, and I still have to show it. I still have to show my license in the airport today to come on your show.
Hold on a second, Ben.
On your show.
Did you know? Wow. Okay, did you? All right, hang on a second. We got some breaking.
What Abby Phillip is circling around here connects to a bigger constitutional lane people forget about. The Fourth Amendment doesn't take a break just because immigration is involved. Federal courts have ruled that officers still need reasonable suspicion tied to a specific immigration violation, not just vibes, language, or how someone looks. That standard exists precisely to prevent dragnet-style stops that sweep up citizens and legal residents. There have already been U.S. citizens wrongfully detained by immigration authorities in past years, which led to lawsuits and payouts. That's not politics, that's documented legal exposure for the government. There's also a basic transparency issue. Masked federal officers operating in civilian neighborhoods blurs accountability. Law enforcement best practices, including DOJ guidelines, stress visible identification to maintain public trust and allow complaints or misconduct reports to be traced. When people can't identify who stopped them, oversight collapses. That's not just a civil liberties concern, it's a safety one. Police chiefs in multiple cities have said community cooperation drops when residents fear any interaction could turn into an immigration situation, which means fewer crime tips and witnesses. Then there's the documentation talking point. The Supreme Court has been clear that show me your papers style enforcement raises equal protection problems if it disproportionately targets certain groups. The US doesn't have a national internal passport system, and historically, Americans have resisted that for freedom of movement reasons. Even conservative courts have pushed back when states try to go too far. So the real question isn't whether borders exist, it's whether enforcement respects constitutional guardrails that protect everyone, including citizens. Pause. Are you getting tired of getting half the story from biased news sources? One outlet says one thing and another says the complete opposite. How are you supposed to know what's actually true? That's where ground news comes in. It lets you compare how different media outlets, left, right, and center are covering the same story. So you can see the full picture instead of just the echo chamber. And here's the best part. Click the link in the description and get 40% off the Vantage tier, which gives you even deeper insights into media bias and political trends. Stay informed, think for yourself, and check out ground news in the description down below.